Hello and welcome to the Career Changers. Our guest today is Carrie Lynn Hotson, job interview coach and HR consultant. Carrie has written 1,000 interview questions, interviewed hundreds and hundreds of candidates, and sadly had to watch as many people weren't able to succeed because they didn't know how to prepare. Today, she's going to talk on the importance of understanding what each interview question means, how to find the right examples, structure your answers, and have fun in the process. Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi there, and thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with your background. How did you start your professional life? Or better, what was your first job?
One of my very first jobs was at 16 dispatching for a fire department. It was a volunteer department, and I was the one that would answer the 911 calls and wake all the firefighters up in the middle of the night and send them out.
And what was your dream job when you were a child?
Originally, I wanted to be a lawyer, and then it transitioned into policing, which is actually what I got into.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. What is your educational background?
So I went to university. I did a BA honors in law and psychology. I specialized in criminology, which was fascinating. And then I've been back to school several times. So I always tell my kids, pick something you're going to enjoy because you're going to be going back to school more than once. So I also have a post-grad certificate in regulatory law and one in human resource management. And I have training in mediation as well. I'm a mediator.
So you had several careers. How and when did you start thinking about becoming an interview coach?
Yeah, so in 2015, I took on the job of HR manager. And I very quickly realized, a shout out to all of your listeners, anybody who is an HR specialist out there, that is an incredibly hard job. You do a great job hiring people and trying to find the right candidates for the right job. It's a lot of work. And I realized quickly that unfortunately, a lot of people have never been trained in how to do an interview. It's not a skill we're taught in school. And so I would see candidates who were so excited about their job and the potential of getting a job and then not do very well in an interview at all. And so I started an interview coaching job because I really wanted to help people.
So, I mean, I just came up with a question that is not in the script, but
That's okay.
we go a little bit.
That's what we do in interviews, right?
Yeah. I thought, how much lying there is in a job interview?
So is it possible for people to slightly embellish? Yes, it is. However, interview staff and HR staff are very skilled at how we write the questions. And so that's why we ask for normally an example, or we will ask for, oh, that's really interesting. Can you give me the name of somebody that was on the team with you? Or who is going to be a reference with regards to this question? How do I validate it? And we will, in background, they will often ask your references. They will give you them examples of things you said in the interview and find out whether or not it was true. So don't lie. That's one of the worst things you could do.
So how do you support people in their careers?
So one of the ways that I help support as a job interview coach is really linking people, their skills and their experience to the jobs that they really want to have. So what I mean by that is in coaching, we look at the job description or the job posting, something that you're aspiring to get, that next career. And we look at all your experience and we start to make links between that job and what you've done in the past and how we're going to explain to that panelist why you are the candidate they should hire for this job.
That sounds really interesting.
Oh, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
And is part of the process of identify transferable skills. That
Absolutely.
actually something we always talk for career changers.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you have to figure out what are those transferable skills, but then you also really have to understand the job you're applying for. So although you may have had this skill in another job, let's say problem solving, so you're a very effective problem solver, but what kind of problems are they going to ask you to solve in this job? They're not going to be the same. So now you have to prove to me you can take the skills from your old job and experiences you've had and tell me how you're going to apply it in this next job. Even give me examples of problems you expect you're going to have to solve. And do you already have some ideas about how you would do that?
That's a real great feedback.
Hmm.
So how can we land our dream jobs, and what are the steps to follow?
So I think one of the first things that people need to do is don't wait till the job posting comes out, because that process is going to go really quick. If there's something that you're aspiring to, you should be pulling up job postings and descriptions for that job now, a year before, 6 months before, because it may take you some time to get the education or the training or the experience that they want for that job. And a lot of people are kind of surprised. Oh, I didn't know you were going to ask for this training. Well, I haven't taken it yet. Well, then you're not even going to get screened in. I know that we're going to talk about resumes and CVs in a little bit, and that's really key. Study the jobs that you're interested in now, and then build it up so that your resume contains the things it needs to contain before it, so that you can even apply and then potentially get on that interview list.
What are the biggest mistakes that people do before, during, and after an interview?
Before, I would say they don't put enough time into interview prep. One of my favorite sayings is your interview is not the time to practice. You should not be trying to come up with an answer in the middle of the interview because you never thought about it or practiced or prepared. So that's absolutely key. I give the example that when I prepared to go from a policing career into an HR career, pretty dynamic change, but a lot of transferable skills, I prepped for that interview for a month. You're reading every policy, you're reading the job description, you're thinking about all your examples, you're rehearsing how you're going to explain it. You need to make sure it's concise and detailed. It takes a long time, but if it's the career you want, it's absolutely worth it. Invest in yourself, invest the time.
So we talk about the before, what about during?
During, sadly, probably letting their nerves get the better of them. And so one of the things when I do one-on-one coaching with clients, we work on those nervous habits that people often are not even aware of. And that's the benefit of working with a coach, because I'll pick up on it. Okay, what are you tapping on? Like, as you think, you're tapping. And it's very distracting to the person trying to listen to you. Or you often use the word right? Or when you get nervous, you talk really, really fast. And I can't keep up with what you're trying to say to me. So you're losing points because I didn't even get it down on the piece of paper. And these are all things that if we practice and we build your confidence, and I teach you to talk slowly and enunciate and get out concisely and in a structured format what you want to say, it's going to go well.
And what about after the interview? Sometimes there is this perception that everything in the hands of the recruiter or the company, and we have to wait for the answer. But is there something that a candidate can do after an interview?
So you do need to be patient. Again, shout out to all those HR experts that are listening in. I know how hard they're working. I know how fast they're working. I know that they are not doing one job, they're doing 15. They've probably got 15 different job postings they're trying to do, plus they're trying to do onboarding and training. And in the era of COVID and other issues, often we have to delay interviews if someone gets sick. I'm not going to make you do an interview if you're not well. So what I thought was going to be a week timeline maybe becomes 2 weeks. So we would ask candidates to be patient. I often tell candidates, ask at the end of the interview, you know, how long do you expect the process to go through and when do you think I would hear? And so if I give you a timeline of 2 weeks, then wait the 2 weeks. If after that you haven't heard, you're welcome to email politely and just ask if, you know, if there's an ETA. And then once you do hear, sometimes by email or a phone call or however they're going to notify that you're not the candidate of choice, I tell people, give yourself 24 hours. It's disappointing and I understand, but don't react immediately. Give yourself that 24 hours. Don't send the angry email. Don't get too discouraged. Every interview failure is a learning process. You can learn from it. And I always debrief with my clients. So that's one of the things that I insert into my coaching and something I always did professionally that I think it's really important to. So what did we learn? What were the questions that were hard? Write them down. Was there experience maybe that you need and you need to gain? Okay, then that's what we're going to work on. If you didn't feel like you had enough examples when it came to certain technical skills, okay, then that's what we're going to work on. So just don't get discouraged. Keep going. And, you know, and maybe a little bit more interview prep or look into some of the services that I have. A lot of them are free. I've got YouTube channels that you can watch so that you feel a little more confident, a little more prepared going into the next one.
What is the best way to write a CV that will get you selected for an interview?
Well, just like an interview, your resume has to be specific and your CV has to be specific to the job you're applying for. Please don't send out carbon copies of your resume and your covering letter for every job. Even if the job is the same title. So let's say you're applying to be, I often give the example of teacher. If you think back to school, like think of all your teachers. They weren't the same. Their jobs weren't the same. They weren't working in the same schools. So if I was applying to different schools to be a teacher, I need to make my cover letter and my resume specific to the teaching job I'm applying for. So if I was applying for math, I would highlight my math skills. If I was applying to be the fitness instructor, I would highlight the fitness things. And I might actually remove things from my cover letter that have nothing to do with the job I'm applying for. So again, it takes time, and use that job posting. Make sure you're hitting what they're asking for. If they want examples of teamwork and problem solving, and there's those buzzwords, put them into your resume, put them into your cover letter. Because a lot of companies now use automated screening processes. So it's basically a software that's going to pull out those words. So if you haven't included them, you might not get screened in, even though you are a worthy candidate.
So we mentioned before that preparing for an interview is one of the essential steps to do in the before phase.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the best way to actually be prepared?
Well, there's about 5 steps that I tell people. The first one is study the job you are applying for. Pull up that job description and highlight it. Highlight all the roles and responsibilities. What are the qualifications? Because here's a hint, that's what we're going to ask you about. That's what your interview questions are going to be about. We're not going to put questions into interviews that have nothing to do with it because we don't have time. We're interviewing, 10 or 20 or 50 people for a job. So every question I'm asking is specific for me to figure out, can you do the job? The second part is also study the organization. I want to know you want to come and work for me. I want to know that you fit my organization. So what's my mission? What's my values? What's my organizational structure? Who can you expect to be working for and with? So once you've got all of that, then you start to cross-reference. On my website, jobinterviewcoach.ca, I actually give people a free PDF. Download it. Because literally what I'm doing is helping you get organized. You're going to take the elements from the job and then you're going to start to cross compare them into your resume and your examples. Where are the links that we need to make? You're going to get your examples ready and then you're going to practice. And here's a big one. So people will either, I'll say, well, how did you practice for your interview? Well, I wrote down my answers. Okay. And then what? Well, I just wrote them down. And then I practiced maybe by myself in the car, on the way to the interview. Okay, you needed to practice earlier, but you also need to practice the way you're going to do the interview. So if I'm meeting with you just like this, and it was in person, and I have to orally answer your interview questions, then I should have orally practiced my interview questions, because it's amazing. I'm actually writing a book right now, and it has been fascinating to learn that when you write something and then you orally read it out to yourself, it sounds very different. It's not as concise as you thought it was going to be, or it takes you a lot longer than you thought. So if your interview answer is supposed to be 5 minutes and you wrote out a page and a half, they don't have 15 minutes to listen to your interview answer. So I think that's my last tip for people, is really make sure that you're practicing the way that you're going to be interviewed, and practice with somebody who's going to be like a coach for you and say, that was a confusing mess, or you forgot to say half of your answer, or you lost me when you started to use all these technical terms that I don't know what any of those things mean. Those are the kind of feedback that you want to get before your interview.
It sounds a little bit like acting, learning a part and really believing in that role.
What a great analogy. That's really good. Yeah, that's great. I haven't heard that before, but I like it, because for some people, this is an extremely strange thing to do. To go into an interview and say, I did this, I'm great, this is why you should hire me. It's not how they normally speak. And unfortunately, if you don't believe what you're saying to me, it's going to come across in your body language. So as the panelist, like, I want to believe you, but you don't believe you. So why should I maybe risk hiring you? So yeah, if you have to think about it as acting and playing the role of you, do it. But tell me why you're the candidate I need to hire, and please don't lie. Give me your unique examples.
Yeah, because it's about believing. And sometimes I think one of the biggest issues is we may not have enough self-confidence. And also, to me, this analogy came to my mind because it makes me think that you need to enter into that role to actually create then an emotional connection with the people that are in front of you. And when you're able to do that, then you can really bring the interview to another level.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the candidates for me that really kind of hit it out of the park are the ones that convince me, oh, you are so ready for this job. You completely understand what you're applying for. You're clearly very experienced and you're so excited for it. Like, you just can't wait, that I literally can't wait to hire you. Like, I can't wait to see what you can do in the job. That's what I want to see. If in an interview you find yourself kind of hesitating, that you're not even sure you want the job, and I know that we all do that. I mean, the job market is competitive, so sometimes you're applying for a job you don't even know if you want, right? And it's going to come across. So be honest with yourself. If it's something you don't think you want to do, then don't apply for it. But if you think, well, maybe, then go for it. Convince yourself you can do it, and convince me that you're the candidate I want to hire.
Yeah, I was talking about this, I think, the other day, and I was mentioning how sometimes we are mistaken and we think because the dream job or something we like, nowadays also with job application, it's easy to see how many people applied for the job. So it can feel overwhelming. And when we want something, is human nature to think it's gonna be difficult. So then there may be, well, let's keep some other option open. And then we do easy apply for jobs we don't really want. And when we are there, we are like, what I'm doing here. And if you don't, and then we go back to the acting analogy, where it's like, well, I don't really feel to play this part.
No. And you know what? I think that's really important. I think it's important to be truthful with yourself and to give yourself permission that if it's really not something that appeals to me, if it's not the kind of work I want to do, then don't do it. Because even if you could fake your way through the interview, it's not a job fit for you, and you're going to be miserable. And remember, we're trying to build that resume. So if you take on a job with me that very clearly you don't like and you didn't want to do right from the onset, you're burning a good reference. Now you've got a job, and when they call me, I'm going to have to say, well, they only lasted a couple months, clearly wasn't a job fit, didn't appear they wanted it. That's going to impact you with the next employer. So yeah, do that research. When you're reading about that job in that organization, be honest. Is this something I want to do in a place that I want to work?
So you recently published your book, Rock That Interview.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the top tips that you would like to share with our listeners?
So one of the other tips we haven't really talked about is the fact that you need to prepare for the type of interview you're going to do. So we talked a little bit about it being verbal, but with the increasing amount of remote work now, we are often going to be doing interviews using, Zoom software or Teams, and you need to be comfortable in this type of venue. You need to have the right equipment. You need to make sure that your internet service is working, make sure there aren't kids and dogs and everybody else, coming in and disrupting your interview. So I talk a lot about the preparation for the day of the interview, not just, with the questions, but the technical pieces of it. Do I know where I'm going if I have to get there? What am I going to wear? And those are all really important pieces that you need to think about. So yeah, my book is called Rock That Interview. It's available again on my website, and I have not made it expensive at all. It's a downloadable book at $5.99 and Canadian. And the reason for that is I really want candidates to do well in their interviews. It's really hard as a panelist to watch somebody's dreams crumble in front of you. So if this is something you've got a career you're striving for, please invest a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, read the book. I promise I'm giving you like 140 questions and a whole bunch of tips and examples and why we're asking the question in the first place. I want to help. I've been on the other side of the table, and I think I have some stuff to offer to you.
Yeah, you sounds really convincing. So we often forget how each of us, with our choices, can have a positive impact in the world. How do you feel your career change has made the world a better place?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Well, I've just made another career choice. So I worked as the senior HR manager for 7 years, and then I turned 50. And I decided it is time to pursue your true passion of coaching and adult facilitation, leadership coaching. I'm writing another book all up for leaders. It'll be coming out this summer. And I've just kind of given myself permission to go after my own dreams. And I'm literally like, this is a complete career change because I'm becoming an entrepreneur. But with the passion of, I just want to help people. I love watching people, come to me a jumbled mess, and they're so nervous and they failed other interviews, and watch that confidence build from their first examples they give me to couple sessions in. I think, listen to you, like you are going to rock this. You're doing so well. So I really wanted to put more time and effort into the coaching and helping people.
Sounds really rewarding.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Fear, lack of clarity, and confusion can make us wonder if there is more to life than what we are living. What can make us understand if we are heading in the right direction?
Another great question. You have good interview questions. So one of the other things I do is behavioral analysis. And there's a behavioral tool called Predictive Success. And listeners can download it for free, predictivesuccess.com. And it is so neat because what it does, it's not even 10 minutes to finish it. And it will tell you what your needs and behaviors are. What are the things that drive you as a person? What do you love to do? What if, given the decision, anything you could do in the day, would you like to do things that are really social and interactive with other people? Or would you prefer to just crawl up with a book or watch a TV and just be by yourself? And it's an innate behavior. Some people want to be social. Some people don't. Some people love flexibility in a job. Some people want rules and structure. Some people want to take risks. Some people absolutely do not want to take any risks. They would like to have a boss telling them exactly what to do. And what you can do with this information is job fit. So what it helps you to do is be true, be honest. Look at what your passions are. What are your needs and behaviors? And does this job fit them? And it will help you decide, should I shoot for that promotion? Because, it's great money, but I hate leading people and I don't like teamwork and I don't want to deal with conflict. And I hate when people ask me to, make a decision. Then maybe don't shoot for that job, shoot for something else. I've used this tool in helping people with their own professional development. I'm trained in it. And if anybody wants any more information, just reach out to me. But it has really helped. It's given people a lot of insight, and it takes away that kind of shame that I didn't do well in this job. And it kind of explains why. That's okay. This really was not your thing. You were trying to push yourself to be somebody you're not. So let's find jobs that suit you better.
Yeah, it seems it's a tool that also help people to increase self-awareness. And sometimes it's easy to think, and we talk about this topic many times at the Career Changer, that we need to change their job or change job after job, because changing what is outside is easier. But if there is no understanding of the dynamic behind it and what are also our internal dynamic, as you mentioned, for example, some people may not enjoy working with others, or they not necessarily want to take decision. So sometimes I think when we apply for jobs or we look at our next jobs, we are not fully aware of all those elements to understand what's going to work for us or what not.
Oh, I completely agree. So my book that's coming out this summer is called Knowing Who You Lead. And it's designed for leaders to understand their employees. And I work the behavioral assessments into the book, explaining how, as a leader, I've used this information to better understand who my employees are. But what I also speak to is for employees themselves to use the language of your needs and what drives you, and explain that to your boss. Explain that in your professional goals, because I really love structure. I love formality. I love to work with detail. I like to work on my own and have the time to do that. Well, if you have that type of language and that type of self-awareness and understanding, then you can really explain yourself to others what you need from them. I need you to give me my work ahead of time. Allow me the time to look through it. Allow me the time to get to the detail that I need. Allow me the time to follow all the rules, and then I'll give you back a great project. But please don't rush me. Please don't keep changing the priorities because that's your needs, because it's really hard for me to deal with and it causes me a lot of stress. And I don't like to make mistakes. It really helps in conflict. It really helps in conflict, because now we understand why the two of us are not getting along. And it's just because we have completely different needs and behaviors. So it works fantastically. So hopefully people will look for the book too this summer.
In your experience, how important is to find our life purpose, and how can having a life purpose change our professional lives?
I have a tattoo actually, and it says find your purpose, because I don't think there's anything more important than finding your purpose. By doing so, you increase all of your health and wellness. You have purpose, so you don't feel as stressed. You enjoy the work that you're doing. So that decreases stress on your family, stress on you. It increases your creativity, your willingness to learn. I think everybody has a purpose. You just have to have some time to find it. And sometimes the courage to say, you know what, I'm going after it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become an interview coach and a leadership coach. I could do this.
Why are we often scared to ask for guidance, and what difference can make having someone to guide us in the right direction?
I think a lot of it's centered around shame. I read and listen a lot to Brené Brown, and her latest book, Atlas from the Heart, great book, speaks a lot about emotion, and shame is a huge one. I think people don't ask for help because they think it makes them look less than. It looks potentially like I've had this facade of what I can do and imposter syndrome, and I can't let anybody know that I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody needs help. That's how we grow. So I think it's just to flip the switch and think not of it as shame, but that I have a growth mindset. I seek out answers. I ask questions. And by doing so, I grow. And what I really encourage in leaders is that the more you grow, the more you allow the people around you to grow. And if I see you as a leader willing to be vulnerable and take the courage and, get a leadership coach or try different exercises or ask for feedback, fantastic. I mean, those are leaders employees want to stay with. So I think everybody should ask for help and seek it out.
What type of advice would you give to anyone along their path to self-realization?
So one of the skills I teach people is that if you didn't understand the question, just ask for it to be repeated. So could you please repeat that question?
What type of advice would you give to anyone along their path to self-realization?
That it's going to take a long time and it's a life journey. I think the more you grow and the more that you try, you realize new parts of you. And as you introduce new people into your life and new experiences, you have more realizations. So just be patient with yourself and enjoy the journey.
With your extensive HR background, what advice would you give to someone looking to change their career?
I think one, like we've discussed, the job fit. I think figure out first who you are. Who are you? What are your strengths? What are your behaviors? What are the things you like to do? And then start to explore what that would look like. Talk to people around you. It's fascinating. As a coach, I can't believe how many jobs there are. And people tell me, right, and compete for jobs that I've never even heard of before. So talk to people, ask them about what do they do and, what kind of jobs are available in their organizations, because you would be surprised. There are a lot of opportunities out there. And then again, that growth mindset, I think, listen to podcasts like yours. I mean, that allows people to get new ideas and hear from people and things that they never thought of. And the more you're willing to learn and listen, the more opportunities that are going to present themselves. And then you'll be able to pick a path that matches you and your passion.
Before we end these episodes with the last question, I had a question and now I can't remember. It happened to me now. Oh.
Okay, it'll come to you. Don't worry.
It's back. So we talk a lot about the content of the CV or resume and also the preparation of the interview. But in your opinion, how important is the design or the look of a CV or resume to be selected?
Good question. It is important. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the HR staff. Okay. Picture there's 500 CVs piled in a pile that we need to go through for the next job. So I need your CV and your covering letter to be very specific for me. Help me. You know that I'm trying to go through this and find the key phrases. Do you have the right education? Do you have the skills and experience? highlight it for me. It's not my job to try to read through this thing and figure it out. When it comes to CVs, I find sometimes people will, like, they list a job from this date to this date, I worked in this organization and I did this job. Okay. And then they kind of tell me things they did in the job, but I don't know that job. I've never done that job. I've never even heard of that job. So I need you, again, if you develop certain competencies, leadership, teamwork, highlight them for me, explain it for me. Don't expect that I'm literally going to Google the job and try to figure out whether that job matches my job. I think that's the biggest mistake people make. And again, it takes time, and that's why you have to change your CV for every job, because there's different things you need to highlight. But if you make my job easier, I'm more likely to screen you in, which means you and I get to meet in person in an interview. And that's what you're aiming for.
Well, we're going now to the last question, and I really enjoyed talking to you. Actually, every time I record an episode, I feel like it's the best one.
Oh, I bet. Yes, what a great job. You get to interview people all the time. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I feel like I've been coached as well.
Good, good. That's great.
So it's really inspirational for me. So the last question that we asked to all our guests, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self?
Take a deep breath, and you don't have to be perfect. I think too often we try to do it perfectly, and because of that, we don't take the risks, or we don't give ourselves the opportunities maybe that we could have. And sadly, this is a trait of many female candidates. We think we have to have the perfect resume. We think that we have to have been able to check every single box for the job before we'll even apply. No, just put yourself out there. If it's something you want to strive for, do it. And if you don't pass this interview, that's okay. You learn from it. So we'll get it next time, but just keep trying. And I think, I think if I'd learned that lesson a little bit sooner, I would have had maybe a little less anxiety trying things.
Well, thank you, Carrie, for joining us today and sharing your inspirational career change story and wisdom. And is there anything we would like to add if someone would like to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So my website is jobinterviewcoach.ca. And if they do hashtag Carrie Lynn Hotson, my name all in one, brings them to everything. So my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my YouTube channel. So it's a really easy way for people to find me. And please reach out if you have questions. I even encourage people, if there's things that you want me to do a video on, there's questions that you have, absolutely, because that's a way that I can get the information out to everybody and help them. And that's really my aim.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you.
Thank you. And a last message for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tune in next week for a new inspirational episode of the Career Changers. Thank you.